This is truly breaking news from the Middle East. Iran has just announced its complete withdrawal from negotiations with the United States of America and the opening of new fronts in the war, not only in the Middle East. In addition, Iran is threatening to block another strait, which would completely paralyze global oil exports. The armed forces of Iran and all groups of the so-called resistance front, that is, all of Iran's proxy forces in the region, are, quote, determined to respond to the crimes of the Zionists and open new fronts. This comes as the US and Iran continue to exchange large-scale missile strikes, and Israel has expanded its offensive in Lebanon. Oil prices immediately soared, showing that the war in the Middle East is once again in full swing. In particular, the United States launched missile strikes on Iranian military targets. The strikes targeted Iranian radar stations and drone control centers in Garuk and on Qashem Island. Iran immediately responded with a strike. Today, Kuwait defended itself against an attack by missiles and drones launched by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Alarms sounded across the country. At the same time, Israel launched a large-scale offensive against Lebanon. Prime Minister Netanyahu publicly stated that he had ordered the troops to advance further into Lebanese territory. Iran accused the United States of failing to restrain Israel and is now threatening to expand the war to the Red Sea and the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. My name is Alexei Pechi. Let's discuss this topic together. But before we start, I ask you to subscribe to this channel, like this episode, leave any comment to support this YouTube channel, and subscribe to my Telegram channel, Pechi News. The link is in this video's description. So, today, Iran officially announced a complete halt to negotiations with the United States of America. So now we can officially state that another attempt to reach a peace agreement with Iran has failed. According to the Iranian agency Tasnim, the Iranian authorities made this decision against the backdrop of escalating military actions in Lebanon. Here is a quote. Lebanon was one of the preliminary conditions for a ceasefire, and now this ceasefire has been violated on all fronts. Including Lebanon, the Iranian negotiation team is stopping the talks. It is noted that the Iranian armed forces and all groups of the so-called resistance front, which is an informal alliance of Iran and the political and military organizations it supports in the Middle East, are determined to respond to the crimes of the Zionists and open new fronts. For understanding, this resistance front includes the Yemeni Houthis, the Houthis, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in the Gaza Strip, the so-called axis of resistance in Iraq, and that's just what's on the surface. These are the groups supported by Iran that have been engaging in destructive behavior in the Middle East for years. Iranian officials and negotiators demanded an immediate end to the aggressive and barbaric operations of the Israeli regime's army in the Gaza Strip and in Lebanon, and I quote, there is also the need for a complete withdrawal of troops from the occupied territories of Lebanon. They stated that until the position of Iran and the resistance front on this issue is established, no further negotiations will take place. So once again, Iran is saying that Israel must completely stop all operations in the Gaza Strip and in Lebanon and moreover withdraw all its troops from Lebanon. In addition, the resistance front and Iran have included in their agenda a complete blockade of the Hormuz Strait and the activation of other fronts, in particular the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, which could lead to a new rise in oil prices. If the Iranians, with the help of the Yemeni Houthis, also block the Bab el-Mandeb Strait in the Red Sea, it will completely shut down the entire Middle East. It is worth noting here that the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, has ordered the troops to actually advance further, deeper into Lebanese territory, continuing the fight against the Iran-backed group Hezbollah despite the ceasefire that was announced more than 6 weeks ago. Up until this point, the territory up to the Litani River in Lebanon was already under the control of the Israeli armed forces, but now Israeli troops are advancing further, aiming to reach the Zahrani River. That's about 10 kilometers to the north. According to Netanyahu, his goal is to deepen and expand Israel's control over areas that were under Hezbollah's control. And now Axios reports that another US attempt to achieve a ceasefire in Lebanon has failed. Just at the moment when Israel is expanding its ground campaign and seeking U.S. permission to carry out massive strikes against Hezbollah targets, even in Beirut, the capital of Lebanon. For several weeks, the U.S. has been urging Israel to refrain from striking Beirut as part of a broader de-escalation strategy. But an American official, speaking on condition of anonymity, hinted today that this position has softened. Here is his quote. The U.S. does not expect Israel to tolerate ongoing attacks by the terrorist organization Hezbollah on its civilians. As a result, Israel launched a large-scale offensive. But that's not all. This past weekend, the United States of America carried out strikes on Iran, which they said were conducted in self-defense. At the same time, U.S. President Donald Trump rejected amendments to the proposed agreement on extending the existing ceasefire regime in the region and reopening the Strait of Hormuz. On Sunday evening, the U.S. Central Command stated that the strikes carried out in Iran over the weekend on Iranian radars and command posts were a response to, quote, aggressive action. Iran, including the downing of the American MQ-1 drone which was in international waters. In particular, Iranian radar stations and drone control centers in Gorleke and on Keshem Island were targeted. Meanwhile, according to several Iranian state media outlets, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps of Iran announced that it had struck an American air base. This statement from the IRGC came after Kuwait reported repelling drone and missile attacks. Also, on Monday morning, the U.S. Central Command reported that it had successfully intercepted 2 Iranian ballistic missiles aimed at American troops stationed in Kuwait. And against this backdrop, oil prices soared again after Iran announced its withdrawal from peace talks with the U.S. Global prices for Brent oil rose from $93 to $97 per barrel, and experts assure that this is far from the limit, 97. And I would like to note that before this, the U.S. and Iran were negotiating the signing of a preliminary memorandum of understanding, which was supposed to put an end to hostilities and lay the foundation for further negotiations on key unresolved issues. The latest changes proposed by Trump, which he made after meeting with his advisors on Friday, have already extended the protracted negotiations for another week. That is, just yesterday Trump assured that Iran agreed to everything, but a few more days were needed to finalize the details. In particular, it was reported that Donald Trump insisted on tougher wording regarding Iran's nuclear commitments and its promise to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Trump also expressed concern about what kind of financial aid might be provided to Iran as part of this deal, fearing comparisons to, as he himself put it, the bundles of money that were provided under the nuclear deal from the time of Barack Obama, which he considers very weak. And so, everyone in the White House in recent days has been assuring that the deal is almost in the bag. Well, as Donald Trump himself said, it's 95% ready. While the White House touted negotiation successes, they chose to stay silent about one crucial episode. It emerged that last week an Iranian ballistic missile was intercepted near the Ali al-Salam air base in Kuwait, resulting in injuries among the personnel of the base due to falling debris. At that time, they chose to keep the incident quiet to avoid disrupting negotiations. However, the Iranians had already begun attacking American bases last week. As a result, this led to Iran simply walking out of the negotiations. But meanwhile, the average price of gasoline in the United States of America reached $4.36 per gal on Sunday. That's 46% higher than at the beginning of the war. As a result, a Gallup poll showed that only 16% of Americans rate the country's economy as excellent or good. I'll leave it at that for now. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. If you want to support the work of this YouTube channel, you can do so with any donation using the links and details in the description of this video. Also, subscribe to my exclusively Ukrainian language YouTube channel. This is Alexei Pichi's new channel. If you want to receive news in Ukrainian, the link is in the description. Be sure to subscribe. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye, everyone.